Monday, 24th of May, 2021. Live from Television Centre in London. This is Good Morning Britain with Susanna Reid and Bill Turnbull.
Very good morning to you. It has just gone 6:30. Welcome to the programme. Welcome back to the programme, Bill Turnbull.
I'm delighted beyond words to be here. It's just fantastic.
Oh.
And it's been too long, Susanna, more than a year.
You thought you'd been able to throw away your alarm clock.
Yes, but I wasn't.
You dragged it out of the bin.
It was painful.
Dusted it off.
Yes.
Now, so how was it? What time did it go off this morning?
Went off at 4, but I was awake at 3. And I got to bed at 11.
Can you explain why you got to bed quite so late?
Because I did, for the first time, we were driving in to London, and for the first time we thought, well, we'll order something from one of those delivery companies.
Oh, yes.
And it said it'll arrive within an hour.
Yeah.
1 hour and 55 minutes later.
And a lot of angry tweeting.
Yes, there we are. Oh, yeah, Uber Eats, sorry about that. And the poor restaurant had to do it twice. So they cooked it once, they gave it to a delivery guy, he never turned up.
Well, he enjoyed his meal, clearly.
And then they very kindly cooked it again and sent a young man, very nice man, on a bicycle. And I watched him coming very, very slowly on his bike and got there. And so I was eating 20 minutes after I should have been asleep. But
Right.
I'm in a really good mood this morning as a result.
Yes. And did you have nightmares overnight? You know, panicking about...
No, well, always, first time back on an early, I never sleep properly anyway.
No. Do you do that thing where you just keep waking up and looking at the alarm clock and thinking, is it time to get up yet?
Yes,
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I got up early and I did my yoga, so I'm all
What, before you
flexed.
came in?
You
Yeah.
even
That's
managed
very
to
impressive.
fit
I
in a
always used to do it.
yoga session.
I've always done that. 10, 15 minutes of yoga, get
Right.
flexed, get the blood flowing,
Yeah.
downward dog and all that.
Right.
And
Sun salutation.
We can
Or
have a go
something.
later, Susanna. There's plenty of space here on the floor. Before we finish on Wednesday, we should do a session on the floor. I mean, of yoga.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Steady on, Bill Turnbull.
We have known each other a long time, but not
We
that long.
have known each other a long time. Well, unfortunately, we do have a few technical issues for you this morning. So the director's been having nightmares overnight as well. We don't have our usual... Well, we do have our screens, but you'll notice they are currently blank. There we go.
This is all for me, isn't it? This is all for me.
We could put some posters up or something instead, couldn't we? Brighten the place up
That's
while
very
it's not
good. Some
working.
streamers, some banners.
I'll do some drawing.
OK. So, what are we going to do for the next 2.5 hours?
We've got quite a lot coming up on the
All right,
programme. We're talking about the fact that BBC bosses being summoned for questioning by MPs in the wake of the Martin Bashir scandal, of course. Both of us former BBC journalists talking about a former BBC journalist and the scandal over the 1995 Princess Diana interview, of course.
Some suggestions that the licence fee should even be, well, looked at, maybe scrapped. We're going to debate that.
We are
later.
going to talk about that because
very
is that something that the government might be under pressure to do or even want to do in the wake of that inquiry? Also, a couple of people who were also interviewed by Martin Bashir, their relatives are on the programme this morning, saying that they're pretty cross about his treatment of them. So we have Michael Jackson's nephew, Taj, and Alex, George Best's wife, of course, to talk to us this morning. They think that they were tricked into giving interviews to Martin Bashir, so we're going to talk to them about their complaints. Also, you're very exercised, as a lot of people are, about this Ryanair flight.
Huge story from Europe last night when a Ryanair flight going from Athens to Vilnius in Lithuania was diverted to Minsk airport in Belarus because the authorities there, you can watch the graphic of it happening, claimed that there was an explosive device on board. They sent up a MiG fighter to guide it down to Minsk,
Or
even though it
force
was
it
closer
down.
to Vilnius.
Yeah.
Then they took everybody off and searched the plane. There was nothing there, but they took off a Belarus dissident, a leader of the opposition, and arrested him, which makes it look very much like that was the point of the whole exercise. There is an international furor about it.
Yeah,
We're going to discuss
quite right.
it later. I mean, really, really serious stuff.
Yeah. And also this morning, it's Peter Andre morning. And He was doing a prank with his family and it led to the house being flooded. We're going to find out. We're doing a full investigative report this morning and we're going to talk to Peter Andre. He's also back on stage in June, July, doing Grease.
Yes. Playing two different roles, weirdly.
Yes.
Which I don't
Probably
quite get.
On the same night?
Possibly. Teen Angel and Vince Fontaine, but probably not on stage at the same time.
No, that might
That'd
be
be a bit
awkward.
tough. That'd be a bit tough.
We have sent Dr. Hillary into the naughty corner.
Feels like it.
Because we don't have the screens, which would normally appear behind him, and we haven't got Charlotte's posters yet.
Do my best.
Dr. Hillary, you have good news, though, don't you, about the number of vaccines that have been given out?
60 million vaccinations have now been carried out. A fantastic success story for the NHS. The NHS staff, the volunteers, everyone that's been involved in getting this organised has done a sterling job. They really have. 60 million jabs already given, and I think 22 million have both jabs now. So good levels of protection for them. It's a really fantastic success story.
I got my second jab last week, and thank you very much indeed to Anna, the volunteer who gave it to me, and to everybody, of course, in the NHS. Dr. Hillary, I want to talk to you about this story that I noticed yesterday. So many people not feeling a thing with their first AstraZeneca jab. Now, I thought I was the only one, and I remember that you and I talked about the fact that I didn't feel anything. But apparently, anecdotal evidence, that's me first time round, suggests many people barely notice their first jab being administered. Second time round, many more people aware of the needle going in for their second dose. And I, in fact, felt it throughout my whole arm for the rest of the day. What is that phenomenon? OK,
so if you have no immunity to something, when you get the first vaccine, nothing immediately is going to happen because it takes about 2 to 3 weeks for your body to develop antibodies. So there is no antibody already there to react to the vaccine. When you have the second vaccine, you've now got some antibodies which will kick in. They'll respond to the second dose to enhance the immunity that you want, and that's why you're likely to get a side effect of a mild nature, whether it's an aching arm, injection site soreness, bit of headache, bit of tiredness on the second dose. So it does actually make logical sense.
Is it the case that I've heard anecdotally that if you've had COVID, you can feel after effects more strongly than...
For the same reason, because you're going to have antibodies to the real virus from the natural immunity rather than the passive immunity that you get from the vaccine.
I wanted to ask you, Bill, about your treatment and how you're getting on, because I read your brilliant article over the weekend in The Sun, and apparently you have some quite unusual methods for staying healthy.
Yeah. Gosh, that's a bit of a list, isn't it? Garlic, cannabis and an oxygen tank. That's just for starters. I'm actually officially on a treatment called lutetium-177, which Hillary will know about. It's a relatively new treatment, and it's a radioactive isotope. They inject it into you once every 6 weeks. And it makes you so live, so to speak, that I have to sleep in a separate room for 3 days.
Right.
I have to, from Ceci, I have to stay no prolonged contact with small children or pregnant women for 6 days.
Right.
And this will be a great loss to the world. For 6 months after my last treatment, I'm not allowed to father any children.
Right.
Yeah.
OK. Is Ceci relieved about that or slightly disappointed?
I think everybody's pretty relieved to hear that, really, aren't they? But it is, Hillary, it's an amazing treatment. Certainly for me, so far, it's worked very well, but sadly not available on the NHS.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a novel treatment and it's very interesting. So it combines a synthetic hormone with a radionuclide, a radioactive particle. So what happens is you're given this by injection, by an intravenous infusion, as you say, every 4 to 8 weeks, something like that, on numerous occasions. And what happens is that the hormone binds it to the cells which you want to destroy, and the radioactive component does the rest. it reduces your symptoms, it increases life expectancy, and it improves quality of life. So you're finding it tolerable. Obviously, you're a bit radioactive immediately after the dose, and you have to keep away from anyone who's pregnant and from children. But it looks to be doing very well, and as cases increase and people having it, it may well be available to NHS down the line in the future.
Yeah.
To be honest, my attention was drawn more to the cannabis and the garlic.
Well, the cannabis is CBD. It's actually hemp. It's not officially cannabis. So
Right.
and it's all legal. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Don't worry about that.
OK.
And the garlic is still also legal, but you really might want to keep your distance.
Well, actually, I indulged in garlic in a meal I had last night.
There
Because
you
I
go.
thought if you're in this morning and you're already garlicked up, you're not going to complain.
So we can be hugger-mugger as much as we like.
Yeah, but apparently not on work
No, of
premises.
course not. No,
Thank good for social distancing, that's all I can say.
Yeah, absolutely right.
Hillary, thank you.
Still to come. You do look exceptionally well.
Thank you. I'm feeling great. I'm feeling really good.
Yeah,
Thank
good.
you very much. Yeah.
Fantastic
Yeah.
stuff. Still to come. Martin Bashir says he loved Princess Diana, but Prince William said the interview with his mother fueled her paranoia. This morning, we are joined by her confidant and butler, Paul Burrell. He used to help smuggle Martin Bashir into Kensington Palace. We'll find out what his reaction is next.
You're watching Good Morning Britain on ITV.
See you in a moment.
Good morning. Competition time now, and Andy's live in Battersea with all the details. Good morning.
Good morning to you both. Lovely to see you. Welcome back, Bill. Now, Bill, very quickly, I was obviously watching earlier at the show. I've never used a food delivery service to my house. You didn't tell us what you actually had. What did you have?
It was Chinese crab and sweet corn soup, Singapore fried noodles, and just a fried rice.
Oh.
I mixed it up all together. I was so hungry. I just want to get it in me and go to sleep. It was delicious. Anything would have been delicious. I was eating the furniture
I had
by that
sushi.
time. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. I had sushi, which was delicious as well. Then now we've... Susanna, what did you have for supper last night, just whilst we're on the subject?
I had beans on toast. Not delivered by a food app, by the way.
She knows how to live. No, exactly. Right, listen, Susanna will know this, as will you watching right now. We give away many, many cars on this programme. Mercedes, millions. Audis, thousands. But Range Rovers, I've only ever given away 3. In 6 years since I've been doing this, we've only given away 3 Range Rovers until today. Yep, back by popular demand. I've got another Range Rover to give away. How do you fancy winning this? It's a hybrid Range Rover Evoque. Now, this car is worth way over £50,000. It comes with all the bells and whistles you want on a brand new car. And this is actually the one you'd win. Honestly, I'm in the car showroom and look what they've written on the screen here. I don't know if you can see it. It says sold to ITV. This will be your car if you win this competition. And as well as the car, of course, I'm going to include some money. I always like to give away some cash. £50,000. That is why they call me the King of Cash. How do you fancy that? £50,000 in totally tax-free cash. Thank you, boys. And, of course, this brand new Range Rover. They could both be yours. And I'm going to throw in a few extras as well. That's all to be told about later. But for now, all you need to know is grab your phone. This competition launches today on the telly. Here's how you could be a winner. For your chance to win the car, the cash and the loot in the boot, go to the website. Entries cost £2. Text WIN to 65557. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can call 09068 78557. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and phone number to BK21, PO Box 7558, Derby, DE1 0NQ. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 2 p.m. on Friday, the 11th of June. Good luck. Just imagine having a brand new hybrid Range Rover parked outside your front door. When you order a takeaway, what you do is you hop in this car, you drive to the takeaway, and you collect it yourself much faster, and you're doing it and being green at the same time. Just saying, Bill, just saying. I blown them all up myself. You need to go. You've got things to do. I've got to make this place look a bit more sparkly.
Andy, thanks very much indeed. See you in a bit.
It's 11 minutes to 7. MPs are set to quiz BBC bosses over the Martin Bashir scandal, where an independent inquiry found that he used deception to secure a panorama interview with Diana, the late Princess of Wales. Her brother Earl Spencer says he believes the interview indirectly led to her death.
I do draw a line between the two events. It's quite clear from the introduction that I sat in on the 19th September 1995, everyone was going to be made untrustworthy. And I think that Diana did lose trust in really key people.
Well, joining us now is Diana's former butler, Paul Burrell, who worked for the Princess at the time of the interview. Paul, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Susanna.
What did you make of the result of the inquiry? You were there during this whole period of time when
yes, I was.
Martin Bashir
I knew
persuaded.
Martin Bashir very well.
Yes, exactly. When he persuaded her to do the interview. What did she feel about doing the interview? And I suppose key to it is how significant were those faked documents in the whole process of her being persuaded?
Well, of course, I never saw those fake documents and I didn't even know they existed. But you have to go back to 1995, Susanna, and ask yourself why the Princess did this panorama interview. And she did it on the back of the Prince of Wales doing his interview with Turnbull, in which he admitted adultery with Camilla Parker Bowles. So the Princess was incensed by that. And we were living at the time in the War of the Walesers. We were vulnerable, a very tiny household with not very much ammunition to fire back. But the Princess's one tool was, of course, that she could actually tell her truth in her words and give an interview to the BBC and Panorama. Now, you know, originally it was meant to be anchored by Nicholas Witchell. And had it been, then it would have been a totally different interview. But it wasn't. It was by Martin Bashir, who got in the back door and persuaded the Princess to do what she did. Now, she never regretted the interview. She didn't regret it. They were her words, her narrative, not Martin Bashir's narrative, the Princess's. So she only regretted one thing, and that was speaking about her love of James Hewitt, because she said to me afterwards, I was worried I shouldn't have said that because it might have an impact on the boys and what will they think of me? And she was always constantly thinking about the boys and what they would think.
Paul, it was quite a...
It
was quite a process getting this interview together. You were part of it because you've said that you drove him into her home under a blanket. Is that right? What happened?
Well, that's right. I was the go-between. I was the person that went out to White City, where you're sitting now, and picked him up in my car and put him under a blanket, either in the boot or in the back seat, and drove him into Kensington Palace without the police knowing, without anyone seeing. Now, the Princess didn't want anyone to see Martin Bashir come into Kensington Palace. She wanted to keep this under wraps. She wanted to keep it secret. So he was like a child, actually. He was so excited about coming to Kensington Palace. Every time he came, he sort of romped up the staircase and, "Hi, Di, how are you?" And they were very friendly and very chatty with each other. And the Princess trusted him. Maybe she trusted him a little bit too much at the time, because had I known that she was going to do this interview, it's easy to say now, I didn't know that she was planning an actual interview. I would have said, well, be careful, because, you know, he's a journalist and he wants a world scoop. But don't underestimate the Princess in all of this. She was a professional. This Panorama interview certainly did accelerate the process of her divorce. But I'm not of the opinion that this caused her death. Of course, her life actually was accelerated by it. She was catapulted onto the world stage. She was then allowed to do the things that she wanted to do with her AIDS campaign and with her landmines campaign. So really, it was a tool to an end, and it wasn't a tool towards her death.
Paul, it's so interesting what you're saying, because you do have that direct insight into how she was at the time.
Yes.
So I just want to ask, do you think she would have done this interview anyway, but with someone other than Martin Bashir? Or do you think that she would have done this interview with Martin Bashir anyway, because his reputation as effectively as a journalist has been destroyed as a result of those fake documents. But I just wonder whether she was inclined, because she stayed very close to him afterwards, didn't she? Inviting him on a holiday, inviting him for dinner. She didn't, as you say, have any regrets over it. But then, of course, the existence of those fake documents, perhaps she wasn't, that wasn't clear at the time.
Well, the note that she wrote, of course, says that she never saw any documents.
Yeah.
That was obviously, when I saw that note, I was gobsmacked because I'd never seen that before. And in it, she says, I never saw any documents. Martin Bashir never showed me any documents. And I did this interview of my own free will. It was almost like a get-out-of-jail-free card for Martin Bashir because, of course, he can rely on that now as fact. I don't know. None of us know whether the princess saw those fake documents or not. But she would have done the interview anyway. It was retaliation towards the Prince of Wales. There was this war of the Waleses, and the princess was fighting for her survival at that time. She was alone. She was abandoned at Kensington Palace. She was really trying to keep her head above the water. And she did this because it was retaliation. That's what it was, pure and entire retaliation. It was as a missile shot into the heart of the Prince of Wales camp. And to tell him, I'm still here, take me seriously, I am a professional woman and I want to support the monarchy in any way I can. And that's another point that people don't understand, is the fact that the princess was a huge monarchist. She was proud of her sons being part of the royal family, and she was proud to be associated with the Queen. I mean, all the letters from the Queen were from her dearest mama, and always love and support from the Queen and Prince Philip. And people don't understand that either, that Diana was still a major member of that family. She wasn't as outcast as you think she was.
Paul, the suggestion's been made, though, that Diana was so upset by the things that had been revealed to her by Martin Bashir that she gave up her security detail, and that led to the circumstances, or contributed to the circumstances around her death. You have a different view?
Not true, Bill, because the princess dismissed her security staff in 1993, 2 years before the Panorama interview. Her security detail had nothing to do with Panorama or then the acceleration towards the end of her life. So that's not true. She didn't have any security at that time. And remember, she didn't tell Martin Bashir everything about her life. He didn't know about Hassanat Khan. He didn't know the things that were happening on other parts of her life because she kept everything in compartments. She was very good at not telling secrets to other people.
There is, of course, I think amongst some, a fear that what she said in that interview will be discounted because of the circumstances in which it was obtained. Yeah. But what you're saying, Paul, is that she would have wanted, and we know, Prince William has said he doesn't want the interview ever shown again.
No, of course he doesn't, because it's his mother. And he's very upset by watching this. And I would be too. I mean, I can't watch it. I can't watch her pouring out her heart. This is a woman who is hurt. And you can see that. You can hear her words. But don't discount her. Don't say that she was unstable, or like other people are saying. There are people out there now saying that she was unstable, that she was unreliable, that she was insecure, that she was a loose cannon. She wasn't any of those things. She was informed. And Martin Bashir was not the only person that gave her information. Don't think that he was the only one who told her what was happening behind the scenes, because the princess was convinced that her phones were hacked. Convinced. In fact, it caused a great fallout between me and her one day when something appeared in the press that only she and I knew about. Now, I'd never spoken to anybody, and neither had she. So she was convinced that her phones were being hacked. Nothing until the end of her days. She thought that she was being listened to.
Paul, thank you very much indeed. Paul Burrell, very, very interesting.
Yeah, just before you go, Paul, I just wonder whether do you feel betrayed by Martin Bashir, and do you think he betrayed Princess Diana, or do you feel that he allowed her to get out what she wanted to get out? Where do you land with this?
Well, it's two sides, really, isn't it? I think betrayed as a friend who didn't tell the princess the whole truth, obviously, because I liked him. We were both his friend, and he was a very kind, a very wonderful personality he had, and he knew which buttons to press to get the right answers. He knew how to play the princess, but she was clever. She knew how to play him too. So in the end, it was a game for her, and she got out of it her place on the world stage. And without that Panorama interview, she would not have gone on to be a global icon. So I think she used it to the best ability she could to become the person she was. She wanted people to know who she was. Panorama was the vehicle, a sensible news channel on the BBC which would tell her story and her words. And also the fact that the chairman of the BBC at the time was Marmaduke Hussey. His wife, of course, is the Queen's lady-in-waiting, Lady Susan Hussey. So she thought it was rather amusing that she could get in the back door of the BBC under Marmaduke Hussey's nose without even anyone knowing.
Paul, thank you so much for your time this morning. And
you're welcome.
It's unfortunately a scandal that has blown up in the BBC's face, hasn't it? But as Paul says, there was so much in that interview that it seems she was prepared to reveal anyway.
Did you hear Paul's clock striking 7? Even they're a minute late.
Uh-oh.
Oh, no.
We're in trouble.
Time is a sort of flexible beast
No.
this
It's
programme.
not. Time is absolutely not. We're a minute late, but let's get the weather with Alex anyway.
We predict showers. Warm showers. Juicy. Proud sponsors of Good Morning Britain National Weather. Boxed boilers.
Hello, a very good morning to you. As you head through the course of this week, you are going to notice a marked improvement in the conditions. As for today, it stays quite unsettled with low pressure still around, quite a few showers which could turn thundery, and also that rain still across Scotland. But as we head through the course of this week, we're going to see high pressure slowly but surely establishing itself across the UK. So it's better weather really from Wednesday onwards, and temperatures will be returning back to average for the time of year. So at the moment, we should be seeing highs of 18, 20 in the south. That's what we're going to get as we get towards the end of this week. However, today it's a little bit more unsettled. We had low pressure swinging across the UK yesterday, which brought fairly windy and also quite wet conditions, and that will stay quite persistent across the north of Scotland through today. Out towards the west, you can see a fair few showers. Some of these showers are heavy, even on the thundery side as we head through into the afternoon. They'll start to push their way eastward, so for many parts it's going to be a mix of sunshine and showers, rain across Scotland, but a drier slot of weather across southwest Scotland into northern England. So this is the place to be today. That's your forecast.
For the weather in detail where you are, go to itv.com/weather.
Monday, 24th of May, 2021. Live from Television Centre in London. This is Good Morning Britain with Susanna Reid and Bill Turnbull.
It's lovely having you here this morning.
Well, it's brilliant to be here. Good morning, Britain. It's just gone 7 o'clock, 3 minutes past, actually. Still 4 minutes earlier than the news was last Monday morning. I checked. 7:07 on Monday, 7:08 on Tuesday, 10 minutes past 7 on Wednesday. That has got to change while I'm here with you.
OK, don't set your clock by this programme, I think is the advice.
But you will be able to soon.
We just get carried away by the interviews. But not this morning. Here's Charlotte with the latest headlines.
I'd better get on with it, hadn't I? Thanks very much. Good morning. The BBC must act quickly to restore public trust in the wake of the Martin Bashir Panorama scandal, according to the Culture Secretary. Oliver Dowden's accused the broadcaster of a we know best attitude.
Charlotte must be feeling like the battered and bruised corporation because a difficult week yet again for the BBC, with MPs now wanting to question current and also former bosses about the Diana interview. And this scandal may bring about wider changes as well, because Oliver Dowden, the Culture Secretary, believes that the BBC has lost touch with many people in the UK and its culture needs to improve.
Up to 100,000 people are expected to defy government guidance this week and travel to Spain, despite it being on the amber list. It comes as the Prime Minister is reportedly planning to announce that the country is on target to continue lifting lockdown measures, with the next major change expected on the 21st of June.
Yes, despite the government guidance not to travel to Spain at the moment, there certainly are plenty of flight options available from the major UK airports. And as much as you will get a warm welcome when you land in Spain, it will be a lot of hassle and expense when you come back into the UK with 2 COVID tests plus 10 days of quarantine. The government for now saying to holidaymakers, show some patience and stick to the green list countries.
Britain has strongly condemned the use of a fighter jet by the Belarusian government to hijack a Ryanair flight and force its diversion. President Lukashenko is accused of staging a bomb threat to intercept the flight from Greece to Lithuania in order to arrest a political opposition activist on board.
Well, the Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab says these were outlandish actions with serious implications. We're still waiting on what any British action will be. That may follow a meeting today of EU leaders looking for a strong response to a European airline being forced to the ground in such a dangerous manner.
And patients may have to wait until 2024 to get dental appointments, according to a new report into the state of dental care. Surgeries say thousands of people are on their waiting lists, with some patients reporting that they felt pressured to pay for private care.
Charlotte, thank you very much indeed. Still ahead on Good Morning Britain, demanding an apology. We're going to speak exclusively to Michael Jackson's nephew, Taj, and George Best's former wife, Alex, following the scandal surrounding his Princess Diana interview. They say Martin Bashir manipulated them into providing interviews as well.
Should be a fascinating chat. Now let's get the news, travel and weather where you are.
See you in a moment.
Welcome back. Still to come, Gary Barlow told him to get back in the studio. And he's been recording with Ricky Wilson too. Peter Andre will be here after 8 o'clock to tell us how his famous friends got him singing again.
You're watching Good Morning Britain on ITV. It is precisely 13 minutes past 7 and 5 seconds on the nose, Bill Turnbull.
That's right. Let's take a look at the front pages.
Is that the kind of timekeeping you like?
Well, no, just the junctions. You got to hit the junctions. But as long as you are aware of the time, that's a start, isn't it?
Can I just say, people are... it's like being back at the BBC. Or maybe it shouldn't be. Yeah,
literally.
Controversial subject this morning.
Very much, yeah.
Just to say, people absolutely loving having you back. Owen, great to see Bill back. Is he one of our editors? Veronica says, great start to Monday. Christine, lovely to see Bill Turnbull this morning. Deborah, your whole fan club's got in touch, Bill. Delight to see Bill Turnbull on GMB this morning, says Vicky, looking so well and an excellent addition to the team.
Thank you. It's just a huge pleasure and an honour, particularly
It's
to be
our pleasure and honour.
back with these guys as well.
Yes.
The champions second.
We're not worthy.
Stop it. Stop it now.
So let's have a look at the front pages this morning. The Times reporting the Culture Secretary, Oliver Dowden, has accused the BBC of having a we know best attitude following the Martin Bashir scandal. Writing in the paper, he says the corporation must change to represent all of Britain.
The UK reaching the milestone of a third of the population being fully vaccinated against COVID-19 leads the Metro. The paper says it means the timetable for ending restrictions is now back on track after it was placed in doubt by the more transmissible Indian variant.
Boris Johnson and his fiancée, Carrie Symonds, will celebrate their wedding, it says, next summer. Is that right?
That's right, next summer.
Saturday, July the 30th, 2022.
Yeah.
The paper claims the pair have sent save-the-date cards to family and friends for a ceremony. That's quite a long way off, isn't it?
A lot can happen, really.
That suggests that the lifting of restrictions on weddings isn't going to happen for a whole year.
I think he's got to save up some money. He hasn't got any cash, has he?
Yeah, now that's
the
awkward,
thought.
isn't it? Yes, he does seem to have these financial challenges.
It's a big issue because there was a story in the papers over the weekend about, you remember when he missed those 5 Cobra meetings at the beginning of the whole COVID crisis. And the suggestion made that he did that because he was busy writing a book about Shakespeare. Could that possibly be true?
Yes, it could possibly be true. I'm not saying it is true. The suggestion has come from Dominic Cummings, his former Deputy Prime Minister, effectively, the aide who's turned on him now and is full of vengeance. He's almost the Prince Harry of the former Downing Street operation.
He just keeps firing salvos, doesn't he, Dominic Cummings, on Twitter at the moment. But on Wednesday, he's going to appear before MPs, isn't he?
Yeah.
And how concerned should we be about the fact that he says he's basically going to open the lid on all the catastrophic mistakes that were made?
Downing Street are concerned because it could be very damaging, but Downing Street also pin their hopes on this. They think people remember Dominic Cummings as the man who drove his car to Barnard Castle to test his eyesight.
The man that practically every minister came out publicly to defend for doing the right thing, according to them.
But now they think the great British public worked out what was going on there. It was a fib. You don't drive your car to Barnard Castle 30 miles to test your eyesight. And so number 10, they think the public...
That he's already discredited, so we don't need to take anything
that's
what he said seriously.
He discredited himself, I think, over Barnard Castle, but the Prime Minister backed him at the time. If he comes out and tells the truth, he's got to be believed. But is he going to be believed? That's going to be Dominic Cummings' problem, because so many people think, hang on, you clearly broke the COVID regulations. We don't believe you went and tested your eyesight on that drive. So why do we believe you now? He might be telling the truth now, and I would hope he would tell the truth so we learn more about what went on, because something like 150,000 people have died and mistakes were clearly made. But will he be believed, Dominic Cummings?
And he will come over, in my view, as a rather unsympathetic character.
Yeah, he is.
He will not be liked.
Well, he certainly won't be saying things which are sympathetic to the government. One of the things he has suggested is that herd immunity by September, this is back last year, was literally the official plan in all documents, graphs and meetings until it was ditched. Now, we know the government denies that herd immunity was ever a policy. Dominic Cummings is saying that it was a massive problem because herd immunity was a policy. So who do we believe? Well, the government's chief scientific advisor, Patrick Vallance, did go out on the airwaves in March last year, before the first lockdown, and said this.
It's important to recognise it's not to stop everybody getting it. You can't do that. It's not possible to stop everybody getting it. And it's also actually not desirable because you want some immunity in the population. We need to have immunity to protect ourselves from this in the future.
To try and reduce the peak, broaden the peak, not to suppress it completely. Also, because most people, the vast majority of people, get a mild illness, to build up some degree of herd immunity as well, so that more people are immune to this disease and we reduce the transmission.
We think that this virus is likely to be one that comes back year on year, become like a seasonal virus, and communities will become immune to it, and that's going to be an important part of controlling this longer term.
60%?
60% is the sort of figure you need to get herd immunity.
Well, it sounds like herd immunity was very much on the agenda.
But the idea was that Cummings was the architect of the herd immunity policy. Now, he'll angrily reject that on Wednesday, but the suggestion was that he was the one who wanted herd immunity as a policy.
It was,
and I don't know who's telling the truth.
It was widely reported at the time that Cummings was backing that, that he seems to have switched some time in March. One of the problems with Cummings' own credibility is he'd written a blog on pandemics before this one erupted in March of last year, and he went back and changed the blog to make it almost look as if he'd predicted COVID-19. But clearly, herd immunity was the policy. And, of course, it was based on the fact that most people who got COVID didn't die, weren't seriously ill. A significant number did, as we know. And the idea was you shielded the most vulnerable. That was 12, 14 million people asked to stay at home, and then you allowed it to spread through the rest of the population, and it would be OK. Well, it got into care homes, Got a lot of people who were very vulnerable, and he got some who are incredibly fit and healthy, and they died too because it is so virulent, this strain.
The BBC story rumbles on and on. The whole Martin Bashir scandal. The government weighing in heavily. Priti Patel's had some very strong things to say. Oliver Dowden in The Times today saying there are lots of questions to answer. He's got to look at the future shape of the BBC, and MPs are going to get stuck into them, aren't they?
They are, but you know, two points on it. It's a real crisis for the BBC. But for Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, to lecture the BBC on journalistic standards when he is a proven liar, he was sacked from the Times for making up
Kevin,
quotes.
this is not the point.
And when he was at the Daily Telegraph, he offered to help a friend get another journalist beaten up.
So just remind us, how is he lecturing the BBC on standards of journalism? What did he say?
Because he said he's very concerned the BBC has to reform. So I just think a bunch of liars lecturing the BBC. We've got to be careful here,
Kevin,
because the BBC, it's a huge crisis. What Martin Bashir did was absolutely wrong. There are lots of other cases coming forward. The BBC, as Dorothy Byrne, the former head of Channel 4 News, says, the BBC and ITV, who also employed Bashir, have to go back all those stories he was involved in. Who else did he lie and deceive and cheat? All that has to be looked at. But the BBC now is very different to the BBC of 26 years ago. And to wreck the BBC because of Bashir, and there are some people on the right of British politics who've always had an axe to grind, and they want to destroy it, and they will use it as an excuse.
Look, the BBC, what was not just about Bashir, the way Bashir behaved, the cover-up was scandalous. It was a concerted cover-up at the BBC. They knew what that man had done, and they covered it up. And as Prince William said in those very powerful words on Friday, if they'd actually done a proper inquiry into what Martin Bashir had done, his mother would not have felt that people all around her had cheated her, had conned her. Who knows how history might have been different? Who knows how history might have been different?
Although Paul Burrell did make the point that she'd actually got rid of her security.
That's a very important point.
That protection earlier, before the interview. So he disputes the idea that you could draw a direct line between that interview, then getting rid of the security, and then the unfortunate
But she did think some of the people people like Patrick Jeffson, for instance, who was her private secretary, she thought he'd sold her out. If the BBC had done a proper inquiry, she'd have known it wasn't true. So why Maguire is going on about the Prime Minister? This is not about the Prime Minister, it's about the BBC.
I thought William was very dignified in his statement because it was his mother. Very dignified, and he said it fuelled her paranoia, accepting there was paranoia there initially. But of course, when we look at it, the lies and deceit that really hurt her, that made her ill, made her paranoid, weren't from Martin Bashir. They were from Charles, her husband, her cheating, lying husband.
I don't know if you've seen Prince Harry's documentary yet, The Me You Can't See, but he talks about how he felt kind of deeply affected by being chased by the paparazzi. Now, that wasn't the BBC.
Nope.
And there are some people who say the tabloids can't take a particularly holier-than-thou view of all this.
Yeah, I agree.
Because Princess Diana was hounded by, media across the piece.
She was.
This was a rogue reporter at the BBC. But, it wasn't like everybody else left her alone.
No.
She was under siege constantly.
Yeah, but we also have to remember about Princess Diana, she also manipulated the media too, to suit her ends.
She'd many years earlier cooperated with the Andrew Morton book.
She had. Absolutely
cooperated. She had favoured journalists she would regularly meet and speak to. That was a world she operated. But some of the things that went on at the time, absolutely wrong. The culture is different now. There'll be some people shouting, no, it's not, this happens, that happens.
It is.
But the culture is very different.
Huge international story blowing up over the weekend with this Ryanair flight on its way to Vilnius, being diverted to Minsk airport and being forced down, and then they take an opposition leader off the plane and arrest him. We're going to speak to Tom Tugendhat of the Foreign Affairs Committee in just a second, but this has got huge repercussions, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's international terrorism by a dictator in Belarus.
Yeah.
And the European Union, the UK, US, all nations which want to follow international law and have decent standards cannot let this go by. There's no economic or political sanction too great to impose on Belarus.
He's despotic. He's not a democrat. The last election he won was cooked. He cheated. He's been, what is he in power? 26 years? Yeah, I know. Amazing, isn't it?
It's amazing how he keeps winning those
president
elections.
for life, isn't he?
He's Europe's last dictator.
Yeah, he is.
Let's talk to the chair of the Foreign Affairs Committee, as Bill promised, Tom Tugendhat. Very good morning to you. What did you make of what happened to this Ryanair flight? Belarus accused of hijacking it, engaging in an act of state terrorism by forcing it to make this emergency landing in Minsk. It was on its way to Vilnius. I think it was even closer to Vilnius than it was to Minsk when this bomb threat was made. And then, as it lands, they arrest this opposition blogger because he is critical of the president of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko.
Well, look, that's an act of state hijacking, an act of state terror. As I wrote alongside my colleagues, the chairs of the US Foreign Affairs Committee, Lithuanian, Irish, German, and indeed others, this is a very serious act because, of course, what it sets, the precedent it sets, is that any state, not just European ones, of course, can force a civilian aircraft to the ground in order to detain anybody they don't like on it. Now, I don't know what you've written about foreign countries at various points, but how do you fancy flying to South Africa? How do you fancy flying to Singapore over some of the jurisdictions that you'd have to cross if you know that your words could result in a life imprisonment or indeed the death penalty, as Mr. Pratasevich may be about to find? I mean, it's a deeply troubling act, and there's no question that this is an act of air piracy, a hijacking, and finished off with a kidnapping. It's absolutely outrageous.
But we have a situation where countries like Britain may raise their arms in horror and say all kinds of things, but is Lukashenko going to take any notice?
Well, I don't think there should be a but at the beginning of that sentence, because there are plenty of things we could do and we should have done already. The first thing we should have done is protect our own and other European citizens from the possibility of another threat like this, and close the airspace over Belarus, order all civilian aircraft neither to enter nor to leave. Now, that would mean that there were no flights in or out of Belarus, and we should ground the Belavia, their flag carrier airline, in order to make sure that that stops as well. But we really do need to protect our citizens. And let's not think that this is some sort of symbolic threat and that they wouldn't really shoot it down. Only a few years ago, in 2014, the Russian government shot down a Malaysian civilian aircraft over Ukraine, killing more than 200 Dutch citizens. Just imagine that, 200 dead Dutch citizens killed by the Russian government. This isn't an idle threat. They mean it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're quite apart from what happened to this individual. It must have been terrifying for the passengers on board.
Absolutely. And, you know, first of all, I mean, if you call a bomb hoax in an airport in the UK, you'll find yourself in prison very, very quickly. So for a state to call a bomb hoax on an aircraft, I mean, that's illegal, certainly under our laws and under many other countries' laws as well. And then to scramble a MiG fighter to force it to the ground. I mean, this is an act of piracy, the like of which we haven't seen in Europe for generations. It's absolutely appalling.
Absolutely right. Tom Tugendhat, thank you very much indeed for joining us from the Foreign Affairs Select Committee. Can you imagine that, being on a plane?
It is staggering.
With a MiG alongside you, being forced to the ground. You think, well, I don't know what the passengers were told.
Europe,
but
in Europe.
It's if he gets away with it, the state get away with it, it would be absolutely shocking.
No, sadly, I think he is such a mindset, he will try and tough it out. But that doesn't mean, as Tom Tugendhat was saying, you don't take measures. And you make life very, very uncomfortable for him, the economy. Unfortunately, some innocent people will suffer from those sanctions too in Belarus, but you just cannot tolerate this behaviour.
Shocking.
You just cannot.
Incredible. All right, Kevin, Andrew, thank you very much indeed. And you can see behind Kevin and Andrew, Charlotte's posters proudly being displayed.
They're coming.
In the screens. No, I thought you did.
No, they're not there. She's still wearing them. There, look, there they are.
This is Spain, you see. Of course, Spain have said you don't need a test to go in, despite the fact it's still on the government's amber list, so that's the Spain representation. I also have one here for the plane that you've just been talking about, the Ryanair flight that had to be diverted.
Good.
Kevin and Andrew, look, they're absolutely jaw-dropping at this pictorial
Keep them
representation. This is coronavirus. Of course, we've had more than 60 million of the jabs now. And also the bad
You
news
have been busy
this morning.
Is there not some
What's
news
this?
to
Teeth?
research?
This is teeth. You see, people might have to wait 3 years to get a dental appointment, so that was just...
She's so hard at work on the news of the morning. Fabulous.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I thought you'd done
Great
these
work.
beautiful graphics behind Kevin and Andrew, but I hadn't realised that
Not quite.
your arts skills extended so far.
You did a better job than I would ever do, got to tell you.
Well, thank you. I think
Thank
it's
you very
working
much.
with a 6-year-old. That's why they're quite a basic level. But, you know, at least you can understand what they are.
Very good, Charlotte.
Yeah.
Very
Still
good.
to come on the programme, Saving Lives by Speaking Out, we meet the man who got himself checked for prostate cancer during the pandemic and was lucky to receive an early diagnosis which led to life-saving surgery, and he's now in the clear. It's a subject very close to your heart, Bill.
Yeah, it is.
Of course, because he wants, like you, thousands of men who've skipped appointments to speak to their GP. That's next.
You're watching Good Morning Britain on ITV.
See you in a moment.